Hi, my name is Kevin Boyle. I am the author of Hit It With a Bigger Hammer. In my last video, I described how the Carter's employees finally overcame the code of silence to establish a credible prevention solution going forward. The new innovative solution enabled Carter's to reverse its decision to close an underperforming branch and save the jobs of 43 employees. The branch adopted the solution and it went on to become the standout performing branch in the company. All 45 branches around New Zealand adopted the solution, and it reported unprecedented success in preventing previous losses estimated in the multi-millions. I want to discuss some of the anecdotal successes of the solution, and I will begin with an example where the solution was introduced at a branch where offending was already happening and a warning given to the offender was not heeded. I have to say here that on most other occasions offending was happening at the time the solution was introduced at a branch. The offenders heeded warnings in accordance with the agreement and stopped their offending. However, this exception involved another assistant manager who was also the transport manager in the branch. A young yardman had been coerced into loading product onto vehicles on the instruction of the assistant manager. The yardman was intimidated by his boss to assist his offending, although he did accept cash payments for his assistance. When this solution was introduced at the branch, the young yardman approached him and told him he wanted to stop. The yardman had noted that a young office girl had recently been made redundant at the branch and was now concerned that their activities might have caused her to lose her job. The assistant manager was a gambler who had gambling debts. He was unmoved by the yardman's approach and told them that the new prevention program was rubbish. He told them their activities had nothing to do with the redundancy of the young office girl and that he needed to continue to pay his debts. The yardman felt pressured by his superior and sought advice from the prevention supervisor appointed at the branch, who referred the matter to me. There was no choice but to invoke the final clause in the agreement and to formally report the assistant manager, which the yardman agreed to do. He also agreed to continue helping the assistant manager while I conducted my investigation. The assistant manager was dismissed and a significant restitution offer was accepted from him to avoid prosecution. This is always an option in the commercial world, as often the agreed level of restitution can be significantly higher than what could be proved in a defended hearing in court. And in the event, restitution was not always ordered by the courts. Also, the young yardman wanted to remain anonymous and did not want to become a witness in criminal proceedings. He was commended by the company and the young office girl was offered her job back. However, she was happy in her new employment. Another anecdote involved a branch attached to a timber mill in the lower North Island of New Zealand. It was in a forestry region as opposed to a metropolis, and it employed some hard-nosed, hard-case employees who would have been well acquainted with the code of silence. I was aware of this when I introduced the solution at the branch, and I intentionally chose a day when the social club operated after the branch closed. As anticipated, all employees agreed to adopt the new solution, and I accepted an invitation to attend the social club afterwards. After competing at 8-ball and darts, I had become familiar enough to ask the hard case group what they thought of the prevention solution they had just adopted. They did not hesitate to label it bullshit, and they said they would never rat on their mates. They did concede, however, that they liked the fact that it wasn't intended to prosecute people. They said they only agreed to it because they didn't want to stand out from everyone else. They said they minded their own business and expected everyone else to do the same. I thanked them for their honesty and explained the concept was new and they should continue to think about it. I told them I anticipated their response, but the solution was inclusive, and as such, they needed to be included and given the same opportunity as everyone else. They said they appreciated being included, but that I shouldn't hold my breath waiting to hear from them. This was okay because at least there was good dialogue with a demographic that would have never before countenanced such dialogue with someone they still perceived as representing security management or policing. It was perhaps 3 years later that I received a late night phone call from the person who told me I shouldn't hold my breath waiting to hear from them. That was how he introduced himself, and I remembered him. And I asked how I could help. He wanted some advice. He told me the manager of the branch had announced there would be 4 redundancies due to a downturn in profitability, and he was asking for volunteers, and no one had yet come forward to volunteer. He told me he now knew the reason for the downturn in profitability after my talk 3 years earlier. One of the transport drivers was stealing product to order for local builders. He told me he had approached him under the prevention agreement, but he was taking no notice. He was not concerned about the redundancies. I told him the prevention agreement was clear, that the driver had agreed he could be formally reported to management if he ignored the warnings of peers. The caller agreed and said the boys were pissed off. They had been given the fingers by the driver, so they were prepared to report him. I drove to the branch overnight and was outside the main gates in time to follow the truck on his first delivery. It did not take long to confirm the offending and finalise my investigation. The driver was dismissed. $65,000 was recovered from the truck driver and the builders, with the driver contributing $45,000. Prosecution was avoided with the restitution, which would not have been recovered through prosecution. The employees were extremely happy with the value of the recovery, which deferred a decision on the redundancies, and the branch returned to profitability. These were 2 examples where the offenders refused to heed warnings, but many more interventions stopped ongoing offending. On another noteworthy occasion, I was approached by a storeman at a branch after I had inducted him and a group of new employees retrospectively into the prevention program. This occurred when new employees signed the self-explanatory agreement prior to being officially inducted into the program. After the induction, he thanked me for his job. He explained that he had lost previous jobs for theft of product. In this company, when he had succumbed to a customer's request to load extra product for cash, he was stopped by another yardman and warned. He said after my induction talk that he understood it better and he appreciated the warning as opposed to being dismissed. He said it was much more meaningful to him being warned by another employee. An unexpected bonus of the solution was its exponential growth outside the realms of the branch into customers and tradespeople who were equally included and were often dealt with under the new program. Employees became more vigilant and empowered by the program. Specific events included customers loading extra product being dealt with at the branch by more vigilant employees, or being met at their building site by the manager, having to explain the extra product on their vehicles, product they had not paid for. Customer requests for extra product were able to be better deflected by the employees, who simply cited the new prevention program. As this became more widely known and accepted, we recorded examples of customers themselves reporting other customers for taking extra product. In some closely contested markets, stolen product can make a big difference in contract pricing and margins. The new prevention solution was successful not only with Carter's employees, but it was beginning to become accepted in a wider theatre of participants. It was demonstrating that you only needed to build intolerance in one area for it to be exponentially transferred to another. This forebode well for its future. However, at the time the new prevention program was registering these unprecedented successes, Carter's employed a change manager to rationalise Carter's 3 regional head offices in New Zealand into one centralised head office. It is the inherent nature of change management to sweep clean most previous management practices, and regrettably, she attributed the need for my new prevention program to weak management management she had just replaced. Although untrue, there is little room for debate when decisions are prejudged like this. The change manager unfortunately discontinued my solution without providing it a due diligence, and she sought to discredit it by returning the $45,000 we had recently recovered from the errant truck driver, citing it as unsafe if the company were later sued by the driver. No such claim had been made, and the driver would have been shocked and surprised to receive the money back into his bank account. It was quite simply a cynical attempt to discredit a significantly held success of the new program. She told me employees should be grateful for their jobs, and therefore they should not steal from the company. She said if they tried under her management, they would be dealt with by the full extent of the law. She invited me to repropose my contract, to install security management to the company, and she also informed me I would be competing for the contract with others. I could see the writing on the wall. I declined the offer, not wanting to take a step backwards. My contract with Carter's was unceremoniously terminated forthwith. 18 months later, the change manager, who had previously been earmarked for directorship of Carter Holt Harvey Limited, suddenly resigned to pursue other interests. I was later told that significant unexplained losses had been reported at Carter's, the estimates of which ranged between $7 million and $13 million. Although I felt vindicated because I had warned her the losses would return, I was sickened for the employees whose trust I had fought hard to win and who had proved the success of the new solution. I felt I had let them down because they had pioneered the new innovation and had achieved unprecedented prevention outcomes before it was arbitrarily taken from them without explanation. I had been refused the opportunity to communicate with them prior to leaving Carter's. I simply hoped the change manager had not used the same words and tone she had used with me when she explained her new expectations to them. I was later informally approached by a senior manager in Carter's about the possibility of re-establishing the prevention solution. He understood my reluctance, as a huge breach of trust had occurred with the employees, and it would be almost impossible now to re-establish that same level of trust. Carter's was a great opportunity lost, as I had intended expanding the concept in commerce using Carter's as a model. I now had to create new opportunities, which was a task made more difficult by its discontinuance in Carter's without apparent explanation. What I could not do was give up, particularly given the success of the program at Carter's. Its future promotion was to become the focus of the rest of my life, and no matter what hurdles I faced, I was committed to keep trying. What I did not understand at the time was how difficult it would be to effect change, particularly as I was later to come to understand the problem did not just affect security management in commerce. The problem merely surfaced in security management and commerce, and I later found its failure emanated from policing, the largest and most established institution in the history of our society. It is little wonder, therefore, that for the next 20 years, my single voice struggled to effect change. I was unaware of this when I started, which was perhaps fortunate because I might never have started had I known. Also perhaps fortuitous in light of the above was the discontinuance of the solution in Carter's, as I might otherwise have been satisfied with effecting change to security management only, in a limited application I could influence. My further research and development of the solution might not have been conducted to ultimately expose the true failure of the policing ideology's growth into other areas like sport, just as it had been exposed in commerce. And it would not have potentially allowed for the establishment and perpetuation of a new, improved prevention ideology for the benefit of all of society going forward. So in spite of my non-success to to effect change up until now, I have made important incremental gains, including conducting telling case studies, writing my book, Hit It With a Bigger Hammer, and producing this series of videos, all of which will combine to allow you to form your own opinion. In my next video, I will discuss my eventual exit from my chosen profession in the security industry. Another unplanned, unwelcome consequence of my quest, but one which I now accept was pivotal in helping me widen my vision to other areas of application for my solution. It did not take me long to see its potential shift from commerce to sport, when in 2000 Hans-Sek Cronje's match-fixing scandal surfaced, and I saw my solution would fit like a hand into a glove over the circumstances of that offending. In my next video, I will discuss its promotion to the International Cricket Council, the ICC, to manage match fixing. Also to the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, to prevent doping in sport, and to the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA, to prevent corruption in that organization and the game itself. Until then.